Sometimes, the most powerful moments don't happen on stage. They don't come with music, lights, or applause. They happen in silence, when everything suddenly stops. On a day that was supposed to be ordinary, Jimin received a phone call that changed everything. His father had collapsed, and within seconds, the world he carefully held together began to fall apart. No cameras followed him. No announcements were made. Just a son rushing to the hospital, carrying fear he couldn't show. But what happened next? What Jungkook did, without anyone asking, without anyone watching, revealed a bond far deeper than fame, deeper than friendship, deeper than words. This is not a rumor. This is not a performance. This is a story that happened when the spotlight was gone. And once you hear it, you'll never see them the same way again. Jimin's emergency rush to the hospital after his father's collapse. What Jungkook did next left everyone speechless. In the early hours of a day that began like any other, an unexpected emergency shook the inner circle of BTS and sent waves of concern through the global fandom. Park Jimin, known worldwide for his gentle smile and unwavering professionalism, was suddenly forced to drop everything after receiving devastating news. His father had collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. According to sources close to the situation, Jimin was in the middle of a tightly scheduled routine when the call came in. Those present described the moment as one where time seemed to freeze. The usually composed idol reportedly went pale, his hands trembling as he listened, before immediately asking to leave. There was no hesitation, no concern for cameras, schedules, or obligations. Only a son's instinct to reach his family as fast as possible. Staff members quietly cleared the way as Jimin was driven straight to the hospital. Inside the vehicle, witnesses say he remained silent, staring ahead with clenched fists, his worry written clearly across his face. For someone who has spent years hiding personal pain behind a calm exterior, this moment revealed a vulnerability fans rarely get to see. What many didn't know at the time was that Jungkook had already been informed. The youngest member of BTS, often described as playful and carefree, reacted instantly. Without alerting media or drawing attention, Jungkook reportedly canceled his own plans and followed Jimin to the hospital. Sources say he didn't announce himself or seek reassurance, he simply showed up. At the hospital, Jungkook stayed close but quiet. He didn't interrupt conversations or ask questions meant for doctors and family. Instead, he sat beside Jimin, offering presence rather than words. A hand on the shoulder, a bottle of water pushed gently forward, a silent signal that Jimin was not alone. One hospital staff member later shared anonymously that Jungkook refused to leave even when asked if he wanted to rest. He said he'd rest when Jimin rested, the source claimed. As hours passed, updates on Jimin's father slowly brought cautious relief. While details of the medical condition were kept private out of respect, it was confirmed that the situation had stabilized. Only then did Jungkook allow himself to step away briefly, just long enough to make a call, reportedly coordinating things, so Jimin wouldn't have to worry about anything beyond his family. Fans around the world began to sense something was happening when Jimin disappeared from public schedules without explanation. When fragments of a story surfaced, social media was flooded with messages of support, prayers, and quiet gratitude, not only for Jimin's father, but for the bond fans saw reflected between the two members. This was not a stage moment. There were no cameras, no applause, no scripted lines. Just two people navigating fear, loyalty, and love behind closed doors. For many armies, what stood out most wasn't the emergency itself, but Jungkook's response. In a world where fame often magnifies distance, his actions reminded everyone of something simple yet powerful. When everything else falls away, real connection remains. Jimin has since returned to light schedules, and while neither he nor Jungkook has spoken publicly about the incident, fans say they don't need an explanation. Sometimes, the quiet moments tell the loudest story. And this one, of a son rushing to his father's side and a friend who refused to let him face it alone, will not be forgotten. The day began quietly, without any sign that it would soon become one of the most emotionally intense moments behind the scenes of BTS's world. Schedules were moving as planned, staff were preparing routines, and nothing seemed out of place, until a single phone call changed everything. Park Jimin received the news no child is ever prepared for. His father had suddenly collapsed, and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Those who were nearby at the time later described the moment as haunting. Jimin, usually warm and attentive to everyone around him, reportedly froze as he listened. His expression shifted instantly, color draining from his face. He asked only one question, "Where?" before standing up and requesting to leave immediately. There were no dramatic words, no visible panic, just urgency. Staff members, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly cleared the way. Any schedules, recordings, or commitments were put aside without question. In that moment, Jimin was no longer an international superstar. He was simply a son racing against fear and time. Inside the car on the way to the hospital, Jimin sat in silence. Witnesses say his hands were tightly clenched in his lap, his gaze fixed straight ahead. The city lights blurred past the windows, but he didn't seem to notice. For someone known for carrying emotional weight quietly, this was one of the rare times his vulnerability could not be hidden. What Jimin did not know yet was that someone else had already been alerted. Jungkook. As soon as Jungkook heard what had happened, he reportedly stopped everything he was doing. No questions, no delays. He canceled his own plans without explanation and quietly followed Jimin to the hospital. There were no managers sent ahead, no announcements made. He simply went. According to sources close to the situation, Jungkook arrived shortly after Jimin and immediately found him. He didn't speak much. He didn't try to distract or comfort with exaggerated words. Instead, he stayed close enough that Jimin could feel him there without having to look. Hospital staff later recalled seeing the two sitting side by side in the waiting area. Jimin leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Jungkook sat next to him, posture still, hands folded, occasionally glancing at Jimin as if silently checking whether he was holding up. At one point, Jungkook gently placed a bottle of water near Jimin's hand. Jimin didn't drink it at first. Jungkook didn't push. He just left it there. Hours passed slowly. Doctors came and went. Family members spoke in hushed tones. Jimin listened carefully, nodding, asking short questions, his voice barely above a whisper. Through it all, Jungkook remained nearby, never intruding, never leaving. One anonymous hospital staff member later shared that Jungkook was offered a place to rest or step outside for fresh air, but he declined. He said he would stay, the source recalled. He said he'd rest later. As updates about Jimin's father slowly came in, the tension began to ease, just slightly. The condition stabilized. The immediate danger passed. Relief came not as joy, but as a quiet exhale, the kind that follows hours of held breath. Only then did Jungkook finally step away for a brief moment. Not to leave, but to make phone calls. Sources say he coordinated quietly with staff and management so Jimin wouldn't have to think about schedules, explanations, or outside pressure. Whatever needed to be handled, Jungkook handled it. Fans around the world began to sense something unusual when Jimin disappeared from public view without prior notice. No social media updates. No explanations. Concern spread quickly, mixed with worry and speculation. When fragments of the story eventually surfaced, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support flooded timelines across languages and countries. Armies sent prayers not only for Jimin's father, but for Jimin himself, acknowledging the emotional toll of facing such fear while living under constant public attention. What resonated most deeply, however, was Jungkook's role. This wasn't a performance. There were no cameras capturing the moment, no headlines prepared in advance. Just a quiet hospital hallway, a worried son, and a friend who refused to let him sit alone. For fans who have followed BTS for years, this moment felt like confirmation of something they had always sensed. The bond between Jimin and Jungkook was never just about shared stages or playful moments on screen. It was about presence, showing up when it mattered most, without needing to be asked. Neither Jimin nor Jungkook has spoken publicly about the incident, and perhaps they never will. Some moments are not meant for explanation or confirmation. They exist quietly, known only to those who were there. Jimin has since returned gradually to lighter schedules, and while he continues to smile for fans, many say there is a new depth in his eyes, a reminder of how fragile life can be and how important it is to hold close the people who stand by you when everything else fades away. In an industry built on spectacle, This story stood out precisely because it happened away from the spotlight. A father's collapse, a son's fear, and a friend who stayed, not for recognition, but because that's what love looks like when no one is watching. And for those who know, this quiet moment will always speak louder than any performance ever could.